Welcome to the debate. So, today we're diving into a financial riddle that I think haunts a pretty significant segment of the high income workforce. We're talking about the high earner, not rich yet, or Henry professional. These are individuals, think specialized surgeons, high level attorneys, or senior tech leads earning these substantial salaries, often $250,000 to well over $500,000 a year, yet who experience this profound anxiety because their actual net worth is, well, it's often far below what you'd expect.
Right. And that feeling of earning a tremendous salary on paper, but feeling, financially fragile when you actually look at the balance sheet, that is a critical tension. So the central question for us today is this: is this high income, low net worth status a structural necessity, a predictable temporary phase that's just inherent to that professional life cycle? Or is it something more serious? Is it a behavioral red flag that signals systematic financial mismanagement?
I'm going to argue that this low net worth is for the most part a normal, temporary phase. It's an expected reflection of life cycle timing. Their current financial state is simply the result of this systematic, years-long process of converting immense future earning power, their human capital, into tangible, financial capital. Their balance sheet just lags behind their actual professional achievement.
And I believe we're witnessing something quite different. I think we're seeing a systemic failure to convert that potential into real lasting security. High income, while it offers incredible potential, often just masks these deep-seated behavioral flaws and, frankly, a fundamental lack of financial discipline that actively prevents cash flow from becoming assets. For far too many in this group, this low net worth is absolutely a red flag. It demonstrates a fundamental financial fragility.
Okay. But let's look clearly at the life cycle timing here. Many of these highly compensated Henrys, particularly specialized professionals, they start accumulating wealth exceptionally late. Why? Because of a decade or more of specialized education and training. Their careers begin not at zero, but with these, heavy debt burdens. While general student debt averages under, say, $40,000, we see specific professional school debt reaching $200,000 or even more. That's for medical or specialized legal fields. That's 6 to 10 years of early repayment where net worth accumulation isn't just slow, it's often negative. It just creates this enormous structural lag that no amount of discipline can instantly overcome.
The debt is undeniable, I'll grant you that, but I have to challenge the idea that a $300,000 salary is somehow irrelevant to overcoming it. If high income truly existed just to service debt and build assets, then we wouldn't see these startling reports. The ones that indicate over a third of people earning more than $200,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. That one statistic, for me, just fundamentally undermines the structural argument. It shows that for a huge portion of this demographic, the problem isn't the lack of income, it's the lack of discipline in managing the cash flow. High income just functions as an enabler for, high-level consumption.
But you're isolating behavior from the environment. This cohort also faces immense structural friction. I'm talking about professionals who are essentially required to live in these high-productivity urban centers. New York, Silicon Valley, Boston. The high cost of housing and state and local taxes, they impose an extreme structural tax drag that just aggressively suppresses the cash available for savings in those initial high-debt years. So their current low net worth, it's just a predictable consequence of the timeline and the location that's necessary for their career to succeed.
That's an interesting point, but I think the structural issues you're citing, they just become the justification for the behavioral flaw. This fragility, it's driven by this insidious lifestyle creep and this constant need for hedonic adaptation. They fall victim to what's known as the Diderot effect, the compulsion to upgrade their entire lifestyle when one luxury item is acquired. It leads to this relentless pursuit of the next status marker. The new luxury car demands a move to a more exclusive neighborhood, which then demands designer furniture. And the result is a permanently high level of spending that prevents them from ever converting that amazing cash flow into real, lasting security.
I see why you emphasize that risk, but I think the average Henry is more rational than you're suggesting.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it's purely an unavoidable structural phase. If their future was so secure, and they were really making these rational, disciplined trade-offs, we should see an aggressively high savings rate once that high income kicks in. And we just don't. The average savings rate for the top 10% of earners is only about 12%. I mean, their income level allows for an enhanced 50-30-20 rule. They could and should be saving 35, maybe 45% of their gross income. This incredibly low conversion rate of income into assets, that's the core behavioral red flag. I mean, why earn $400,000 if you only save the amount a person making $100,000 saves?
That's a compelling challenge, I'll admit, regarding the savings rate. But I would frame the purpose of that income stream a little differently. We have to account for the nature of their wealth, specifically the risk profile of their human capital. So let's be clear what bond-like human capital means. A professional who has achieved highly specialized, stable employment, a tenured partner, a chief engineer, a niche medical specialist, they possess an income stream that is remarkably stable. It's largely independent of broad market volatility. It is an asset. It's a massive stream of fixed income in their guaranteed future earnings. So because this career security serves as an extremely low-risk, high-value asset, they're theoretically justified in assuming a higher risk profile and thus lower immediate savings in their financial portfolio.
Wait, let me just stop you there. Are you suggesting that a low net worth is actually a feature of being financially savvy? Because their high future income justifies risky personal investment?
Precisely. Their financial net worth is low, yes, but their hidden asset, their human capital, is extremely high and stable. This mitigates the immediate concern about their financial fragility. They have, in effect, saved by investing in human capital that yields these stable, high returns.
That is a fascinating, yet I would say a dangerous theoretical justification for dependency. Relying so heavily on this so-called bond-like human capital introduces the very substantial and tangible risk of golden handcuffs. If their net worth is low, they have no cushion. They have no maneuverability. Their compensation packages, the vesting schedules, deferred incentives, the non-compete clauses, they're often explicitly designed to financially entrap them. They're forced to stay in jobs they hate, working 80 hours a week in high-stress positions, simply because they lack the financial runway to walk away. The fact that they are financially trapped, that is a sign of systematic fragility, regardless of how stable their future income could be. It makes them asset-rich but freedom-poor.
Well, I'd argue that's more a critique of corporate compensation structures, not necessarily a personal finance failing. Furthermore, we're discussing the primary obstacle to early net worth accumulation. And I still believe structural cost remains the greatest accelerator or decelerator for this group. The concept of geographic arbitrage gives us the clearest evidence that environment often dictates outcomes more than behavior does.
Okay, but how does that apply to the typical Henry, who often can't just pick up and move?
Because the example provides the contrast. Take a high-earning physician moving from Manhattan to Buffalo, New York. They experience a dramatic drop in their cost burden. The portion of their pre-tax income that was eaten up by housing and childcare plummeted from almost 67% in Manhattan to just 18.7% in Buffalo. Now, that single structural change, requiring no additional financial discipline, instantly shifted their monthly savings power to between 45 and 50% of their income. This proves that behavior, while important, is often secondary to the immediate financial environment.
That's a powerful demonstration for sure, but you're still ignoring the psychological component that keeps people stuck. High earners in these high-cost cities, they frequently anchor their perception of affordability to their inflated gross salary, not their true disposable income. This anchoring leads to systematic mental accounting errors. To them, a discretionary expense, like a $1,000 monthly car lease, feels insignificant. A drop in the bucket compared to a $20,000 monthly paycheck. They just categorize it as a small luxury they deserve.
But what is the material impact of that one small luxury?
The material impact is devastating over time. They ignore the opportunity cost. That seemingly small $1,000 invested consistently at a modest return could compound to roughly $1.17 million over 30 years. Their low net worth isn't just a lag caused by debt.
It is the cumulative, systemic result of poor decision-making fueled by this competitive consumerism where they mistake future earning potential for realized spendable wealth right now. They're trying to project a success their balance sheet doesn't actually support.
I still view this as a timeline mismatch where that compounding opportunity just hasn't fully manifested yet. And look, the structural hurdle of tax drag remains immense for this group, particularly in high tax regions. And this is entirely beyond their behavioral control. We cited effective tax rates that can easily exceed 50%. It makes achieving a 45% savings rate mathematically, well, nearly impossible. Until that human capital starts yielding truly substantial returns and the initial debt is gone, you're asking for the impossible during the first 10 or 15 years of their career.
But the problem is that the impossible is where the wealth is actually created. The core behavioral red flag, regardless of external constraints, is the emotional reaction to the feeling of scarcity that persists despite the high income. We have research showing that when individuals feel a lack of perceived control due to financial or psychological pressure, they exhibit a heightened propensity toward luxury consumption.
Can you elaborate on that psychological mechanism a bit?
Certainly, it's compensatory behavior. They buy those high-status symbols, the expensive watches, the high-end clothes, the European vacations, as a quick, external way to restore some psychological balance by signaling status. Because they feel stressed by debt or high costs, they compensate by projecting success. This is not rational financial behavior. It's an emotional, status-driven response that reveals a fundamental, internal lack of control over their money. If your net worth dictates that you're still broke, the urge to signal that you aren't is a really powerful trap.
That is a compelling point about the psychological pressures. But the very research you cite offers a crucial nuance that actually supports my position. That compensatory consumption effect, it's found to be completely eliminated for individuals who possess a strong internal locus of control.
And for our listeners, could you define internal locus of control?
Sure. An internal locus of control just means the individual attributes their success to their own effort and abilities, rather than relying on external factors or status symbols for validation. So the disciplined Henry professional who maintains this internal focus, who resists that hedonic treadmill, they're primarily constrained not by a weakness of character, but by the structural and temporal realities of high initial debt and severe tax friction. For this professional, low net worth is unequivocally a phase, not a failure. They're doing everything right, but time and structure are working against them, just temporarily.
But we're debating the average Henry, and the sheer prevalence of lifestyle creep, the existence of that 35% living paycheck to paycheck, that strongly suggests that the default state for the high earner is financially fragile. If you need a specialized psychological framework just to avoid financial stress on a $250,000 salary, then the behavior is the primary point of failure.
And I maintain that the default structural reality of high education costs and regional economic friction forces a delayed start, meaning that for a significant period, low net worth is simply the accurate, unavoidable reality of their accumulation trajectory.
Which forces them to face that behavioral choice, accelerate the savings right now, or rely on future income and just stay in the golden handcuffs.
So to summarize my position, low net worth for a high earner is structurally consistent with the early accumulation phase of a highly educated professional. It represents a temporary, predictable imbalance caused by systematic debt payoff and the necessity of fighting against these significant structural costs and tax burdens.
And conversely, I'd say persistent low net worth, even factoring in that initial debt, points directly to critical behavioral weaknesses. The willingness to indulge in massive lifestyle creep, to fall prey to these comparison traps, and to consequently become reliant on golden handcuffs. It demonstrates a fundamental failure to prioritize security over status. And that translates directly into systemic financial fragility, no matter the size of the paycheck.
So ultimately, the debate really hinges on interpretation and timeline.
Is the current net worth figure for a high earner a lagging indicator of long-term professional success that just hasn't fully manifested yet?
Or is it a potent warning sign that the high income is actively masking a deep-seated financial fragility the individual must address immediately, lest they remain, perpetually the working rich, always chasing security without ever quite achieving it? It's a compelling distinction, and I think it's one every professional in this position has to assess for themselves.